Everyone, this is me and Sally again. We are starting a new project together that I call Project SOFEE. Project SOFEE basically is an application that exposes an API and a portal, and it allows people to add in generic data like countries, regions, languages, religions, counties, cities. It basically allows you to manage and control all the little details that concern a certain country or nation. What currencies they're using, what's their date time format. Do you use Hijri dates? Do you use lunar dates? Do you use, Gregorian dates? What's their time zone? A generic, wholesome project that allows people to manage, and control their data, end to end, with an exposed, simple API. And Sally's gonna be joining me into this journey. And basically, before we start any project, really, we need to kind of, outline what the project needs to be. So this is one of the simplest projects around the world because basically what Project Sophie is basically you have just a simple API and you have a UI, and the UI is talking to the API. So this is your UI, and this is your API here, and your API has a database
Okay.
attached to it, and basically the API is talking to the database,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the database is basically having the data, and people are able, your consumers are either able to use your data directly through the UI or directly through the API. So if there are engineers and developers, they'll be able to use the API directly. If they are people that want to just visualize the data, they can basically go through the UI and look at that. And of course, we're going to learn, this is a wholesome project. Why? Because you get to learn about end-to-end integration, building something from scratch, from the beginning to the end. You get to basically learn about how to add security, what are roles, how to
Mm-hmm.
build database integrations, all of these great things that we're gonna be doing together. And today
Oh,
we're just gonna go ahead, Sally. Go
everyone's
ahead.
there. I love that.
Yeah, it's perfect, right? It's a perfect project,
Mm-hmm.
and the project, of course, is going to be standard compliant. So if you want to jump in,
Mm-hmm.
people watching us, if you want to jump in and contribute to the project, by all means. I want people to see what it's like to actually build in software from an idea um, um, to a finished project. But also more importantly, a project like this is very simple. You can actually, finish the whole project in no time, given the right speed and right momentum, and it would be really, really beneficial. So I'm going to start from scratch here. I'm going to go here and say, okay, so what is the first thing that I really care about? I'm going to go start a new repository. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
call this repository Sophie, right? So this is Project Sophie. And, add a README, sure. Add a get ignore, sure. I want the get ignore that's for C sharp. So get ignore basically it saves you from having to deal with binary files that you don't actually want to include. Like if you run your project locally, it will actually build it for you. Let me see here if I can find. So is there C sharp in here? Sharp. Yeah, it's Visual Studio, just Visual Studio. Okay, perfect. Sounds good. So this is Visual Studio in here, and then later on we're gonna choose, and here we can let's I can put an MIT license in here. Anyone can use it. That's not a problem. And then grant your marketplace app access to this repository. Azure pipelines. I don't want Azure pipelines. I'm gonna add actually so this is gonna be SOFEE Core actually because core meaning the API, the backend, right? So I'm just gonna go here and say, Sophie is a project that allows users to collect geopolitical data such as countries, regions, languages, time zones, and all kinds of different applications. Okay, so here's all that, time zones and all that, kinds of different data, right? So I'm gonna save that in here. This is basically us creating a project from scratch like this. And then Sally, I'm gonna add you as a contributor on this project. So I'm gonna go here and add Sally developer like this. So here you are. You should receive an invitation. Make sure you accept that one. And then, okay, so now this is my repository here. I just want to go and create the project that will basically like this is a repository. I want to start actually creating a simple project, that we can start with. There's this piece about the initialization of a project. You're just initializing your project. You're just putting in the basic details in there. So pay attention to this one because this happens once per project. This piece that I'm going to show you, it happens only once per project. So let's just start with this. I'm going to go here and say, open this with Visual Studio. So I have Visual Studio handler in here. So you're basically going to pop up Visual Studio. Here's Visual Studio here. Let me, let's see here. So let me put this. I'm just trying to find the location of this. You might not be able to see that yet, but here's D, here's source, this, and that works. Okay, so I'm cloning this project and just like I did drop down code, you basically clone it in Visual Studio. And then I'm gonna share my screen here. So here's my project right here, right? Right now, this project doesn't have anything in it. It's pretty empty. There's nothing in there, right? I'm gonna start simple, really. I'm just gonna go here and say I want to create a new project, and my new project will be a blank solution, just starting from scratch, really nothing in there. So this my solution is called SOFEE Core, right? That's SOFEE Core, and then I'm gonna find where I saved that project. So I'm gonna go here in the D partition source. And then I'm gonna find SOFEE in here. So this is SOFEE Core right here. Okay,
Hold
so
on.
that's
When did you save it? I didn't catch that.
oh, it's not showing this screen, this little screen.
It's a small, but I didn't realize when now you are about to save it, right? You
Yeah,
haven't saved it before.
I'm just creating the project. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I thought you said you're looking for that. I got confused.
Oh, I'm just looking for the D partition. The D partition.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Where is
here,
that? Just I didn't get what is that, Miss
oh,
departed?
D partition. If you're using a Windows operating system, you'll be able to see the D partition. It's just Windows has
Oh.
partitions like C, D.
Oh, I remember that. No, okay. It's been a long
Right.
time. Okay.
Right. Okay. So that's that part. So let me increase scale out here just a little bit so people can see. Okay, so you see that solution in here, right? A
Mm-hmm.
very blank, simple solution. I'm just gonna go in here and add a new project. And my new project is gonna be an ASP.NET Web API. See ASP.NET Core Web API. Can you see this screen here,
Yes.
Sally?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. It's okay. And then I'm gonna go here and say SOFEE.core.api, right? So
Right.
that's my API project. And then it's telling me, hey, which framework do you want to work with, right? Unfortunately, the new template in the .NET 6, has a little bit of issues that we still need to think about and standardize. So we're gonna switch to .NET 6, but I really like the template from .NET 5, so I'm gonna go with this one. And let's go up in here. .NET 6 is still also in beta. It's not fully released yet, so that's okay. Okay, so do you see all of this stuff on the side here? This is all
Yes.
stuff, this is just the plain, brand new project. I'm gonna create for it a new repository. I'm gonna say users, and then Hassan, Habib, and then I'm gonna say infra, initialize, core API.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the core API project. I'm just cleaning it up. So there's things here that we don't need. I'm gonna throw this away. I don't need this guy, that weather thing. I don't need the weather controller. This guy can go in the trash. I have my startup. I have all of this. This is great. This is all good stuff. We can clean this up a little bit. So, normally with this template, the things that are supposed to be fat arrowed, they are
Mm-hmm.
scoped. So we're gonna fix that. And then the things that can be fat arrowed again, they are scoped. So let's fix that as well. And then I'm gonna go down here and do this. So this is that. And then this guy is not supposed to be fat arrow. This guy needs to be,
Yes.
scoped because it's more than one line,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Wonder.
So I'm just gonna go here and say return, and here's my guy here. Perfect. Okay, so this is my web builder. This is all good and dandy. Let's go here. Okay, there you go. And then There is, we clean up more stuff in here. So this is just cleaning up a new project. So, okay, I have configuration here. Let me fix this like this. And then let me see here. You have this situation here where you have a bunch of things set up. You probably want to use like when the input parameter here is not clear, you know, you don't know what's going on there. You probably
Mhm.
want to like just fix that by basically going and saying, okay, let's parameterize this, right? Brian Parker, you probably met him once. We pair together all the time. He has a really nice
Mhm.
suggestion to drive this through configuration. We might actually take that into account as part of our standard. Okay, now this guy is multi-liner. What is this guy passing in? It's passing in Swagger options. So instead of C, actually, we need to be more expressive than this. So I'm just going to say
Yeah.
options like this. Okay, so this guy is done here. So I have controllers. And then what is in here? These are one-liners. They don't need to be separated by a separate an empty line. So I'm just going to do this. That looks much better. And then the same thing in here. This Swagger API UI basically has options. So we're just going to rename this into option. This is just prepping up a new project like this. And then for my options, I have two things in here are being passed in as well. What are these two things? We have URL and names. Okay, so here's URL and here is name. This is all for the Swagger
Mhm.
template. And I can probably knock those down by one just like this. So here's that. And then I don't know. I don't like this naming convention. It's app. I'm gonna go and say application builder because it's actually an application builder. The template itself is not super, and this is also web host environment. So I'm just gonna call it what it is. This is just prepping up a new project for new work. Basically, you're starting a brand new project from scratch together, right? So this is me preparing this API project to be something easy to work with. And then also in here, we have controllers. Okay, so all of this is done. The last thing I want to do here, I want to add in there. So this development JSON, this guy should be ignored because this guy is a part of your local work. It's not supposed to be something you share with the world because you might have secrets in there and all that. So I'm going to go and say ignore this local item. So this guy is going to be ignored. It's going to have it's going to be staying on my machine and your machine. It will have connection strings. It will have maybe API keys and all that, but it won't be accessible and visible through the API component or through the source control. Now, what else do I need here? I really need, just a simple header for my project, right? So every project I have
Mhm.
usually has a nice header at the top, right? So I'm gonna add in a nice header for this project because most of these projects really, they need to kind of indicate and talk about, who built them, what's the history there and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm just gonna go here and say this is a coalition. This is MIT license. This is a coalition project. When I say a coalition, basically I mean, a bunch of really nice engineers got together, and they decided to build this as an open source project. Okay, and I'm gonna trim this guy a little bit like this. Right? Free to use,
Mhm.
you know, just uh, free to use for the world. A simple project like this. Okay. Just a coalition, this you and me and everybody that likes to learn software, basically. I'm gonna do the same thing in here. So I'm just gonna go here and say, okay, this guy here is here is this copyright. Okay, so now this guy is clean and clear, right? Let's go ahead and basically add one simple controller in here. And this controller that we put when we initialize or do infrastructure for a new project, a controller like this is basically tells us that the system is running. So if you have a home controller in there, we basically go there and say, okay, this is a home controller, yeah, an API controller. I'm just going to call it home controller. And these controllers are really important because if the system is not responding or some API endpoints in it is not responding, it's probably a
Mhm.
great idea that we go and say, okay, let's hit the least risky endpoint and see if the project, it's like a heartbeat thing. So I'm gonna go here and say this is an HTTP GET, and I'm gonna go here and say public action result. That's what every controller returns. And then there
Mm.
is a string inside the action result, and it just says get. And inside the action result, I'm just gonna say okay. And then there is a message. It'll say hello Mario, right? The princess is in another castle. That's just a funny comment that we leave there. And the idea of this comment is to say, hey, this is just a funny comment. You're just running it in there. We're basically saying, hey, sorry, if you're a hacker and you're scanning my API, I'm going to tell you, sorry, that what you're looking for is in another castle. It's not here. It's just a really funny
Mm.
thing that we put there. But it has a very serious,
Mm.
impact. The term here of impact,
Mm.
meaning that you want to know and you want to make sure at all times that your API is healthy and running. And in order for you to do that, you need to hit that endpoint maybe once or twice a day, maybe every hour, maybe every 4 hours. And that's part of the logging
Mhm.
and telemetry, which we will talk about in a bit. Now, we have this thing here called ControllerBase. ControllerBase is bad. We have a library here called RESTful Sense. It's much stronger library that helps us basically have much more capabilities than your regular library. So let's add this guy here, RESTful Sense. Here it is. So I added all this in here. And then basically there is also updates. You want to make sure your project is up to date. So this is update in here. And I'm going to pull that project actually as a framework, as an entire framework. I'm going to pull everything in it. Always include these pre-release so you get to
Mhm.
learn about, if you have existing
Mm.
libraries, you want to make sure that these libraries have the latest and greatest. The last thing I'm going to do here is that I'm going to go and in the properties of this project, I'm just going to go ahead and say this project is running on .NET 6, just like this.
6 or 5.
Okay. Mm.
6 or 5. You choose for
Si
the other one
No,
5.
the template is 5, but I've switched the framework
Mm.
to 6. And now I can go and say RESTful controller because that guy is much, much more powerful than
Mm.
anything else. So that's basically a simple, really plain, nothing in there project. We didn't really add anything. It's just we're starting from the very, very beginning, right? And now we just need to test it. So if I go run this project right now like this, let's go run this project here. It should spin up what I call a Swagger document. And a Swagger document is basically what allows us to basically go and say, I want to be able to see whether my project is working or not. Do you see this? And here's the
Mm.
controller endpoint that we created. And if I go and hit that controller endpoint, it will return, hello Mario, the princess is in another castle.
Mm. Interesting.
Okay, so that means that my project is running, my system is healthy, and it's in a good state. Okay, what's the next thing for me to do? The next thing for me to do, this is basically laying down the foundation work for building an API from scratch,
Mm.
right? So I have startup CS, this is all good and dandy. I have a program, this is all good. I have controller, this is all good. Now the only thing I need to do is just go here and commit all of this. So I'm gonna go here and say infra, right? And then I'm gonna go and say initialize API
Mm.
project or API project.
Correct.
So now I initialize my project. Now I can go and push this stuff in here. And now I can go back into my GitHub account in here. And I can basically go and say, okay, where is my project SOFEE? Here's SOFEE Core. Here's a PR. Infra Initialize Core API Project. I'm going to create the PR just for us to take a look at it. It's always nice to give it another look. Okay, we have this on ignore. We have our dependencies. We have all of that good stuff in there. Yeah, the project looks like it's in good format and in good shape. We can now merge this project, and that basically us putting the first foundation project we need, right, to run our software in here. Now,
Mm.
to make sure that everything is healthy, we're gonna need to add about four other different types of projects. Number one, we need to
Mhm.
add a unit test project. Like any project we're gonna be building, it has to have at
Mhm.
least four different types of project. What are these projects that we like to build? To make sure that we're actually having a healthy, development environment. The first one in here, the first one is your core API, your main project. It could be core API or portal or mobile, whatever the project is, the actual project that has the code, right? And then you
Yep.
need your unit tests project. And you need
Right.
your acceptance tests project. You need your provision build project, and you need your provision project. So there is infrastructure build, infra build, and there is infra provision, and there is tests acceptance, and there is tests unit. Okay, so these are one, two, three, four, five different projects, and we just completed this one. Right? So, which means we're going to have to create a couple of other opportunities here, just in case someone is interested to help us with this project. That's also okay. We want to go here and say, infra like this, initialize unit test project. That's one. What else do I need? I need another one, infra, right? Initialize acceptance test project. We're going to do all of these together. So it's project acceptance test project.
Mhm.
And then what else do I need? I have also infra. I want to initialize. So in here I have build actually. And this build, I guess it's also infra. So it's infra initialize build project. And then the last one is infra as well. This is just at the very beginning, infra initialize provision project. These are the things that we need to complete to actually start writing code in our project. If you
Mhm.
look back at the issues, we need unit tests, we need acceptance tests, we need build project, we need initialize provision project before I actually can go there and say, this project is basically ready for people to, start, contributing to it and using it and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
tomorrow, so two
Mhm.
things I want from you, continue to pick up code routes from OSSS, number one. And then number two, tomorrow we're going to start picking up one of these projects in here and doing them together. So, each one of those could have its own session. We'll talk about it. We'll see how we're going to set it together and we'll continue this project together. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much.
All righty. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you all in another session. Talk to you later. Bye. Bye,
Talk to you
Sally.
later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.